Hi, everyone. We're just getting started here. We're letting everybody get into the program. We'll start in just a moment. Hi, everyone. We're still just admitting everyone here. We'll get started in just a moment. Okay. Okay, everyone. Well, good afternoon. Let's go ahead and get started here. My name is Drew Asbury, and I'm the horticulturalist and volunteer manager here at Hillwood, and I'll be assisting with our program this afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our inaugural volunteer virtual floral workshop hosted by our fabulous Amy Wilbur, who is Hillwood's floral and event decor designer. Our workshop today is a Zoom meeting, which means, as some of you have already found out, you can turn your camera on, but we will be muting everyone from our side of things, particularly while Amy's doing her demonstration. So for questions, please type those into the chat function at the bottom of the screen, and I will be sharing those with Amy throughout the course of the program. And I do want to give a little reminder that in the email that came out this morning, Amy was gracious enough to prepare a PowerPoint with a lot of additional information and references and great information about today's program. But yet she's not going to go over that while here, but it's all there for you at your own pace. And then we are super excited. As much as I love to listen to Amy talk all day, one of the fun parts about this program is that for those of you who picked up flowers this morning, we would love to see, your creations at the end of the event. So at that point, you're welcome to raise your hand or flag us, and Amy will call on you, we'll unmute you, and we would love to see your fabulous creations. So at this point, for those of you that are at home with flowers, get your scissors ready. Otherwise, sit back, relax, make yourself comfortable, and I will turn things over to Amy.
Great. Thank you, Drew. And thank you guys for joining us today. We obviously miss you all very much and thought this would be a fun way to connect with you virtually. I know some of you are coming back and we've seen some of you in the gardens already. So this is just a fun way to sort of start off the spring season at Hillwood, and also just in general as well, something to kind of think about in terms of what you can do while you're at home if you're quarantining or just staying socially distant with things in your own backyard. So today, my main inspiration for this is Constance Spry. For those of you who aren't familiar with who she is, right now she's actually having a bit of a moment. She is going to have an exhibit at the Garden Museum in London, which is going to open, I think, in a couple of weeks. But she was the first woman to really make floral design accessible to everyone. Before her time, she was doing floral design was more for the wealthy, the upper class, and the royalty. So she decided that what she wanted to do was take something as beautiful as nature and make it accessible to everyone. She really started the whole movement of taking things from your own backyard, the idea of foraging, the idea of using locally, and to create things that weren't very structured, a little bit more loose, something that we have sort of co-opted in the last several years as garden style. She was the pioneer of that. And I was doing a lot of research on her. I came across a couple of things. One of the things that I thought was really kind of fun and exciting was that I happened to find her book in the bookshelves in my office. So she created a lot of different books, like encyclopedias for flower arranging. She then sort of moved into this other realm where she was also doing recipes and cookbooks, but I don't find that to be quite as interesting. It was more her idea of really just how to bring floral design and flowers to everyone and make it something that could be for the general population. The other thing that I happened to come across, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it's this whole book about Constance Spry. It's called The Surprising Life of Constance Spry. And these images of the books and the titles are also on the PowerPoint for your reference for later on. So one of the things that I think that makes my job super fun here is being able to go around property and see what I can find and use materials that are right here. The other thing that I love is being able to work with Drew and create things in the cutting garden that are a little bit of a surprise, or things that you wouldn't necessarily think of to be in a cutting garden and to use as floral design, but there it is. Drew and I have also started this season. We're going to have some vegetables in the cutting garden that I'm going to incorporate into floral design as well. So it's this whole idea and this premise of look around, what's in season and what you can use locally, and what you can use like either in your backyard or if you go to a farmer's market, things like that, that can inspire you to create a floral arrangement. So what we're going to do today is do a floral arrangement using things that you should be able to find in season right now, or if you went to your, again, local farmer's market, that you would find available to you. The other thing that we're doing here, especially in the horticulture department, is really trying to figure out ways to be more environmentally conscious. And one of the things that for me as working in flowers is really being able to use things that are local and to not have things that are like shipped in from all over the world, and to use things that are a little bit more on the environmentally friendly side, like using natives. So I know that in the PowerPoint that was sent out, Drew made up a fabulous list of all of the native plants that should be in bloom in May in the DMV region. So it's this green, like very densely packed part of the PowerPoint, but I really encourage you guys to look through that. And if you do have your own gardens, to really start thinking about using things that are native, that are going to help us, years to come, to help save our planet. So with that, we're going to do a little arrangement today. And the first thing I always like to talk about is our chicken wire, because again, talking about sustainability and talking about trying to be a little bit kinder to the environment, we like to use chicken wire because you can reuse it and it's recyclable. And instead of using floral foam, which is essentially just styrofoam that ends up in the landfill that never breaks down, even the stuff that says that it can be composted, it's still like 100+ years for it to actually ever break down. So with that, we use only chicken wire, and I think it's great. I love it. It also sort of goes along with the whole idea of creating arrangements that are a little bit loose and that are in, again, this style of the garden style and inspired by Constance Spry as well. So right here, I have a piece of chicken wire. I ball it up so that the ends are connected and kind of squish it together. So I have an access point for my stems to hit from the top and then also to catch on the bottom. Today, we're using this concrete container. She's a little bigger than I had anticipated her to be. It's a little bit heavy, but I think it will be fun. You can also use it as a planter later on or whatever, but today we're going to use this for our base. So I'm going to take my chicken wire. I'm just going to shove it inside. And then I like using a clear floral tape to then just tape down the container, just because you don't want the chicken wire to kind of like pop out. So I'm going to tape it. Just making a little cross here in the center. Oopsie. And then I'm going to take the tape and I'm going to circle it all around so that it's nice and secure. One of my other favorite tools that I love, if you can't see it, but the Lazy Susan. And this I have actually propped up so that you can see it from the camera view. And this will help to be able to move your arrangement around relatively easily so you can see all sides that are happening at once. Okay, so my chicken wire is shoved into my container. I have it all taped off and I am ready to go. The next most important thing that I'm going to do is fill it with water. Let's see. So I don't put anything into the water when I am using it for the arrangements. I typically prep all of my flowers with a floral food right as they're being processed from the cutting garden. But then after that, I just use plain water. If you have like one of those little packets with the floral food in it, go ahead. It certainly doesn't help. I find it's 50-50 whether it actually helps it or not. So I just don't use it altogether. All right. Does anyone have any questions at this point about making your container and prepped and ready to go for your arrangement?
Amy, at this point, I don't see any questions in the chat yet.
Good. So that means everyone understands what's happening thus far. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is let me back up for a second. Typically what I would do next is create a base for my flowers to sit in. And what I mean by that is I would green my container to about 70% of the way. And I would use that as my guide to how big and how wide my arrangement's going to be. Typically, you like to think in terms of 1.5 times the scale of your container, that you don't want it to be any bigger or smaller than that. But today is going to be a little bit different. So again, this is just a different approach to how you can go about and start a floral arrangement. Because we're using lilac and we're using viburnum, we're using these like really kind of bushy flowers that also have a lot of greenery on them. So I'm going to use that as sort of my guide to what I want to make the arrangement look like. The other thing is I have 3 different kinds of flowers today. I have the lilac that again came locally. So you'll see that it's, looks like it just came off of a shrub out of your backyard. We also have viburnum, and then we have Solomon seal. I did go around property and I cut some other things that I thought would be interesting that you might also have access to. And they're just like green, branches and things like that. But if you don't have that, not a big deal either. I'm going to actually put those in at the end today instead of starting with them. So we're going to mostly arrange with just the 3 elements that we have. And then I'm going to go in and we can talk about how you can sort of jazz up your arrangement with things from your backyard. Or if you are doing things strictly from your backyard, that's fine as well. So the first thing that I have is my lilac. See, and as you can see, it's very kind of bushy. And I like the fact that it has all of this greenery with it as well. And then my viburnum that I have, you can see is kind of tall and it's a little bit leggy with its stems. And then I have my Solomon seal. And Francis was kind enough to let me cut this from behind the Japanese style garden. So that was a really fun treat to have in the mix. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my Solomon seal as my sort of point of reference. And the other thing with the Solomon seal is I'm going to use this as what I like to call architectural points. So that means I'm going to use this to determine how big and how wide my arrangement's going to be. The other thing that I always like to talk about is I cut everything on a nice sharp 45-degree angle, and everything gets a nice fresh cut. With my greenery, I'm going to put the Solomon seal so it's resting up against the lip of the container. I can already tell this is going to be a lot bigger than the camera is. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna cut this down just for the sake of it being in view. Okay. And the other thing that I love about the chicken wire is that you can move your stems in and out without worrying about the integrity of what's going to happen. A lot of times whenever you'd be using that foam, if you put it in, then that's it. Can't ever like take it out and put it back in again without messing up the structure of it. So as you can see, it's nice and sort of secure in there. And I'm putting everything in not straight up and down, but all sort of at a slight angle. So this arrangement, I'm going to make one side-ish, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So again, I know that I like this arch. So this is going to be one area. And then I'm going to take another one. And I can see that some of the little flowers on the Solomon seal have already had their moment. So I'm just going to pluck those off. And then I'm going to bring my second one. So I'm going to create a bit of a line going down this way. And again, I'm using the edge of my container to kind of catch the stem. So if you step back, you can see that you have this slight sort of angle happening. So from there, I'm just going to add in a couple more. Again, I'm going to kind of pick off these little flowers that have already done their thing. I'm going to take off some of the bottom leaves. And I'm going to just, again, mimic this line here, but I'm going to make this one just a little bit higher. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so I like what's happening right here. The next thing that I'm going to do, before we move on, does anyone have any questions?
Hi, Amy. Yes,
Hi.
we do. I was fascinated there. I was daydreaming in your lovely demonstration there. So Leo has asked, what size chicken wire do you use?
So this one, I have it on my materials list here. This was 10.5 by 18 inches. And it's just standard chicken wire. The chicken wire that I use actually is galvanized instead of just like the regular silvery one. The galvanized one I find doesn't rust as quickly and it's really easy to reuse and reuse. But otherwise, like the holes of the chicken wire are all relatively standard.
Thank you. And then Julie asked, is this safe to be outside during the winter time? Can it
during the winter? Probably not.
Yeah, I would kind of agree, especially concrete with a hole can kind of work well as a container outside in my experience, but without the hole, you'd fill it with water. It might, I don't think that's a good combo for winter time.
Yeah, I would definitely, it'll be great all season, except, once we have like a freeze or anything, and then there's any kind of moisture, I think it might crack.
Yeah, and then we have another one from Elka. Where do you buy your chicken wire?
I bought this from Potomac Floral Wholesale in Silver Spring, but you can get it at probably any hardware store or any craft store as well. They also oftentimes sell smaller bundles of the galvanized chicken wire instead of buying like a whole big bushel of it.
Thanks, Amy. I think that sets us up well for right now. So Sweet. Carry on.
Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my viburnum, and I'm going to kind of take off some of the lower things. What I like to do when trying to figure out where it's going to go, I can see from my container, I'll do it from this side, like how much I want to cut off. A lot of times I don't measure just because I have a pretty good idea because I'm doing this every week of how much I need to cut off. But if you're a little bit unsure of like, okay, I don't know if I need to cut, like 3 inches off or I need to cut 4 inches off, the easiest thing to do is just take your stem and then put it right up against your container. And then you can kind of figure out how much you want to have taken off, because you want all of your stems to be touching all the way down to the surface of the container. And so I'm going to start filling in with my viburnum. And I'm going to start with my viburnum from the center. And I'm going to kind of start going out with it this way. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to kind of keep this whole area, this nice lush green. So again, if some of the little ones at the bottom don't look very good, just pluck those off. The other thing that I think sometimes is a good way to think about when you're putting flowers in is doing it in odd numbers. That way you can kind of triangulate or make a triangle pattern with your design, and it makes it a little bit more interesting instead of having just things like all in a row or something like that. Although that could be nice too. But you can see what I've done. So in the back here, I'm just sort of mimicking the same thing that's happening in the front. I'm going to do a little bit more with my viburnum. My arrangement is now getting taller than I am. So if you can't see what I'm doing, just let me know. I'm going to start to fill in right here with some more of my viburnum. And again, I'm trying to mimic what's happening in the front, also what's going on in the back. Because even if this is a one-sided arrangement, you don't want it to be like one of those cartoon things where you can see it from the front, and then the minute you turn it to the side, it's all just like sort of standing up straight. You want it to still have a lot of volume. So as you can see, the back is still has interest as well. So looking at this, I'm going to take this piece of viburnum and I want it to kind of angle this way. And I'm going to use one more piece. Oops, I'm going to actually fix this a little bit too. A little bit wonky. And you can see, I don't know if you can see this or not, but like right down here, there seems to be a bit of a bald spot. So I'm going to put a piece of viburnum right in there. And like there's a little bit of a brown tip right here. Just going to snip that right off. Okay, so now I have my viburnum and my Solomon seal. And I'm pretty happy with what's happening so far. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my lilac. So before we do that, I just want to stop and check in, see how everyone's doing, and if there are any questions.
Amy, no questions have come up, but I'm impressed that you do this backwards. Like the view that we see is actually the front of the arrangement. So
correct, but yeah, I also have the camera, so that's how I can see it.
multitasking. No fresh questions at the moment.
Okay, so as you can see, let me just move this off to the side for a second. So if you look at this lilac, you can see it's like there's like a lot of stems going on. There's a lot of, florets happening as well. And there's also a lot of green going on. So I'm not going to take this whole thing and put it into the arrangement because I think it's going to be a little bit unruly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down. And I'm looking at this piece in particular. And you can see right here, there seems to be sort of a natural break. So I'm going to snip off that. And so now I'm left with this, which I think is a little bit more interesting. I don't like what's happening here, so I'm going to take that off. And I don't like what's happening here, so I'm going to take that off. And now I have a piece that I find to be more interesting and a little bit more manageable. I'm going to take a nice sharp 45-degree cut with that. Bring her back over here. And then I'm going to start filling in this area with my lilac. And so I haven't forgotten about this piece that I snipped off. And again, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to take this little chunky off here and take this one off here. So now I'm just left with these two stems. I'm going to put this back here. So again, that I'm bringing the color into the back of the arrangement as well. I'm going to hold on to these though. I'm not going to throw these away. All right, so I'm looking through my lilac a little bit more. Again, you can see this one, there's kind of a lot going on. This piece is broken off, so I'm gonna trim that. This one doesn't really, I don't know what's happening with that. So I'm going to cut in the middle there. And now I'm just left with this nice little cluster. I'm gonna trim some of these excess things off. Give that a nice snip. No, what's happening with this one? And the one thing that's fun with the lilac is that some of it has a nice sort of natural drippiness to it. So I want to use that and have, I don't know if you can see this right here, but how it's kind of spilling out over the container. I need to have a little look-see what's happening. So I know I want to put some more lilac in this middle area here. And then I'm going to take that whole cluster of color and then bring it down to this side. So this piece is a nice, easy stem to use. And again, I'm trying to keep this sort of wild appearance and sort of this really bushy sort of feel to it as well. And I like using different depths with the flowers. So some of them come in a little bit closer, some of them are coming out. And I like the way this one's kind of naturally drooping. So I'm going to use that so that it hangs over the side a little bit. I'm going to place that down in this area here. The lilac smells so good. That's one of the benefits of using the local lilac, is that it actually still has its smell to it, unlike the stuff that you get in from Holland. Okay, so again, I'm looking at this. And again, if there are any like, you know, funky little leaves that you don't like the looks of, you can always just trim those off. Come into this side. That, oopsie. Have a little look. Again, I'm just going to start filling in this area a little bit more. And then I'm just going to put one more little patch right here. And so now I'm going to go in with some of the lilac greenery, and I'm going to look at my arrangement from the front, and I'm going to see if there are any little bald spots where I'll just fill in a little bit with some of this greenery here. And I'm going to fill in towards the back so that I don't have any sort of gaping holes or anything back there. I'm going to look at it, just adjust anything that I see. And now I want to go in with a little bit more of my Solomon seal to give it a little bit more excitement. So I see this one and I think it's an amazing, I don't know if you can see that. It's got like a little curve to it. And I really want to showcase that kind of curve. So I'm going to put it in here. So you can kind of see that nice little squish there. And I'm going to put something right in here. Again, just really looking at the natural shape of what each stem and branch is doing and using that instead of trying to fight it. Although I don't like the way this leaf is doing its thing, so I'm just going to pluck that off. But again, keeping this nice shape to let it do its thing. So now it's kind of spilling out the side like that. I'm gonna get one more. Ooh, I really like this one here. And let's see. I'm gonna put that one right down in here. So again, it's hanging over the side. I need to fix this back here. I'm going to bring it more over to this side where it was before. Okay. I think I'm good for now with my flowers that are in here. What I like to do is just kind of like look down, look at it from a different perspective, see if there are any sort of things that need to be tweaked. This one I'm still not 100% happy with. So I might pull this one out, put it more towards the back here. Then I'm going to go in and find a different. I think this one will be a nicer one to the side. Yeah. Okay, so this is my arrangement. It's a little hard to see because she's a little big. What I'm going to do is just grab something real quick. So that you can see the arrangement without anything in the back. Drew, does that help?
You're doing a good job there, Amy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take this off of the little Lazy Susan. And I'm going to hold this up so you can kind of see. There's the back of it. Okay. I did that kind of quick, so don't feel like you have to be done with yours at this time. But if you have questions, I can certainly help you at this point.
Amy, you make things look so effortless, and I'm always in agony when I'm putting every stem into an arrangement. So, but we do have a question, and I Googled the answer for us, so no pressure. But Elka asked, is the lilac a native? And it is not a native plant. It's from southeastern Europe, but it's not on an invasive plant list either. So it's a great plant to intermingle in your garden with other plants. So it's not fearful for our environment. So, and other than that, we've had a couple beautifuls and, gorgeous comments come out. Question from Lorraine, can you use honeysuckle? Sure, well, no, I'm sorry, that's Amy's question. Amy.
So I happen to use honeysuckle all the time. I like to go into the back part of the property and just see what I can find. I'm like, ooh, Drew, what's this? He's like, that's honeysuckle. So
and I say, Amy, that's an invasive, but hey, go for it. But it is blooming now, so why not?
So the one thing that I will say that I've been very conscious of when I use it in my arrangement, when I go to break down my arrangement, I take the honeysuckle and I put it into the trash. I don't put it into the compost. So that way it kind of helps it maybe not spread quite as much. But I, before really learning about native plants and invasive plants and everything like that, I was always just looking at things visually. And I would see whatever sort of caught my eye and whatever I liked and whatever I thought like shape, texture, color, that kind of thing. So that's what has always been like the first thing that I am drawn to whenever trying to find material to use for arrangements. But since I've been learning more about it, I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious of it. But I figure if it's on property and I'm, able to cut it down, I'll cut it down. I did happen to use like pokeberry the other day in one of my arrangements because there's this massive vine that was there. So I pulled up the vine and then, I used that in my arrangement. And again, I wouldn't, go out of your way to, plant anything invasive or, plant these sort of things. But it is, again, like what it is that you have around that you can then use. Which brings me to, I found some things today. I was walking around. And again, these are things that I found when I was walking down past the compost area on the lower drive. But this is one of my favorite things that I've been using a lot in arrangements. And this is, what is this, Drew? Do you know?
I can't tell. Is that a beech? I can't.
It's like a woody stem. I want to say that it's jasmine? No, honeysuckle?
It could be the honeysuckle, but the honeysuckle bush in the woods is blooming right now. So it should have little white fragrant flowers on it.
Yeah.
I can't tell what that nondescript green foliage is.
Green foliage.
And my little 1 inch,
Yeah,
photo of you here.
You can't really tell. Crazy. Yeah. But so it's like, this is what I do is I look for things that, have this amazing shape and texture and size. And I think, okay, I'll use that in an arrangement. Or then I was also, one of my favorite things is finding, random, like little trees. that I can, cut like a little branch off of or something like that. But again, I was drawn to this one because of the way it's sort of drooping down, and you'd be able to use it, upside down or right side up, just depending on what kind of arrangement you wanted to make. And then the other thing, of course, that I found on property in the cutting garden, our peonies are about to come into bloom. So just seeing like a couple of things like that, I find to be really inspirational and really something that I will then base the rest of my arrangement off of. So when I look for things in, in the back area, in the wooded area, where I'm allowed to do a little harvesting, it really is all about just the texture and the shape and how it's sort of, catching my eye at that moment. And that's really kind of what I want, for you to be able to do when you're out in your garden, or if you're at a farmer's market or whatever, is to really find one sort of thing, like hone in on it, and then kind of shape everything from around that. With the arrangement today, I knew that I wanted to use lilac because I knew that it was going to be something that a lot of people would have in bloom in their gardens or in their yards, or that, again, you would be able to find at any nursery or a local florist or farmer's market. And from there, I was trying to figure out, well, what will go nicely with that? And I was, fortunate enough that Francis, told me I could cut all of the Solomon seal from behind the Japanese style garden. So I was like, that's going to be perfect. So I really wanted to then think about limiting the color palette to just having it be the purples and greens to make it really feel a lot like the springtime and the palettes that you see around campus right now.
Hey, Amy, we do have some new questions, but I did want to circle back too about that honeysuckle question. We do have a native honeysuckle that, Amy, you have used quite regularly in your arrangements. It's blooming right now. It's truly a vine. It's called Major Wheeler honeysuckle, and it's outrageously gorgeous now, a bright coral, and it's a great pollinator plant, and hummingbirds love it. And I think you've just used some last week. So I apologize for skipping right to that invasive honeysuckle bush that's all around town. So, but Khaki put in a comment here that she incorporated woodland phlox. So I'm hoping, Khaki, we get a better view of your arrangement here soon. But the next question for Amy is, Julie mentioned that last year she had used oak leaf hydrangea in her arrangements, but it only lasted a day or two. So, is this something that's just, in your experience, is it trial and error of what lasts and what doesn't? Or do you have any tips related to that?
It is. And oak leaf hydrangea typically for me will last for at least a week. So, but I always cut all of my woodies and things of that nature in the morning. I don't know if that actually helps or not, but when it's nice and cool, and by morning, I mean like 7 o'clock in the morning. So relatively early, before it gets too hot, before you have any of the sun beating down on anything. I did read that it's the best time to harvest is actually in the very early mornings, which is what we typically do. So that could really depend on the longevity of whatever it is that you're cutting, whether it's oak leaf hydrangea or anything else. Know the time of day that you're cutting it, and that could be a determining factor. The other thing that I like to do, which I know a lot of people don't have the luxury of having, but after I cut something, I let it rest just in the potting room for like maybe an hour or two, but then I put it into the cooler overnight. So then it's staying at a nice cool temperature for at least 24 hours before I actually start using the material that I'm going to use in my arrangements. Having things, be able to sit and like really hydrate and absorb all the water that they need to, I think is one of the key factors of longevity of your flowers.
Well said, Amy. And that does wrap up our questions there.
Okay. So is anyone ready to then showcase their arrangement? So if you are, I've never done this before. So I guess.
Lorraine sounds like she's ready, but okay. Lorraine, can you unmute yourself, Lorraine? I'm not sure if we can unmute you.
Okay, so I've asked you to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna remove the spotlight. and spotlight.
Okay, so
There.
do I turn this around? I do. Like this way?
Yeah. Oh, there it is. So can you lower the camera just a little bit?
Can you see? Wait, maybe. Hold on. Can you see it all?
Yeah. It's a little bit there. Yep.
Okay, wait a minute. I'll come around this way.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, if you tilt down a little bit more.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, hold on. There we go.
There it is. Oh, gorgeous. Oh, that's beautiful, Lorraine.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah.
Okay. All I heard was silence. I thought it was just people were just horrified.
No.
No, it's gorgeous.
No, absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing with us.
I enjoyed watching you and Julie and Khaki concentrate the entire program, Lorraine. So yeah, great outfit. It looks amazing.
Excellent. Okay. Is there anyone else?
I'm ready.
Oh, nice. That sounded like Khaki.
You're right, Drew. Thank you.
Where is Khaki?
Okay.
Oh, look what you did. Perfect.
Yes. And you can't really see the woodland phlox. Let me see if I can. They're so beautiful because they're lavender.
Yes.
And there's a little bit of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And-
beautiful. Yeah.
They're all over Hillwood on the Woodland Trail. And they inspired me. And it was the first thing that came up in my garden this year. So I was really thrilled.
Excellent.
It's one of my favorite native plants.
Oh.
It looks
What's that?
gorgeous, Khaki.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you for encouraging me. And I really loved getting to use all the greenery that made it so au naturel. Oops, there's my dirty kitchen cloth. But I love stuffing it full, and I'm hoping that I can get it to a Mother's Day table on Sunday.
Yeah. The containers were a little heavy. I apologize for that. I was like, oh, concrete. I'm sure that'll be fine. I'm like, oh, that's really heavy, but I think it'll hold up well.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Khaki. Is there anyone else?
I'm happy to show. I will say I love my concrete. I love the concrete. Although I'm not sure. Let's see. Start video.
There it is. Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
So yeah, I actually will probably, because I'm going to put it a little higher over on something over there. And so
Mhm.
I'll probably go out and try to get a little more to cover the lip, because when it's down here, you can see the lip a little more. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So one thing that I saw, and Drew, tell me if this is a native or not, but it's the apple blossom leaves that are coming up. Those like big
Mayaples?
Mayapple,
Yeah, that's a native that's out in our woodlands. Yeah.
yeah. So like even if you look for something that's just sort of like a big leaf, a lot of times, even if you want to like if you have a like a begonia plant or something like that, or like a house plant that are just sort of like those big fan leaves, you can put those towards the bottom of your arrangement, and that'll help to kind of cover up the base as well.
I have a lot of hellebores that might droop
Oh yeah,
nicely at the base.
that would be perfect.
Or a
yeah.
Japanese maple, or my Weigelia are just about to bloom actually. So maybe even that.
Yeah, excellent. And again, I also, I encourage you guys to, if you have materials like that, to definitely like add that into your arrangement as well. Wonderful. Thank you. Is there anyone else? No?
Am I allowed to pick on people? Joan, we see your camera's turned on. Are you, I think you can unmute. Let's put Joan on the spot.
Can,
Oh,
Joan,
well, that's gorgeous, Joan.
oh, thank you.
lovely.
And I like how you have the Solomon seal, so you can see the little flowers kind of dangling off of the edge as well. It's a
Yeah,
really nice touch.
I cut off the dead ones, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, very nice, very nice.
Gorgeous. Nice
And
and
I'll
plush.
run around outside and see if there's anything else that I can add. Yeah, it's lovely.
Excellent.
I have some rhododendron, but I mean, we're talking rhododendron blooms are about this big. So I think they may be too big for something
If
like
you wanted to use one, what you could do is just sort of like move and just have it in one spot. So you could move some of the lilac or something off to the side and just have it be like one focal point of your arrangement.
Yeah, they're the purple color, so they
Yeah.
look good. I'll have to go out and see who wants to be
See who's ready.
sacrificed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Thank you. It was
Thank
great.
you, Joan. It's beautiful.
Super.
Thanks for sharing, Joan.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Is that it? Everyone else is being shy.
Amy, you're getting several shout outs in the chat function of a fabulous program today.
Oh, good.
And I will thank you as well for always inspiring us to think of, new ways of putting things together. And the asymmetry, before I met you, Amy, I was, everything had to be perfectly matching and symmetric. And now I look and I love the asymmetry and how it really makes your eyes, I think, work around an arrangement and makes it a bit more complicated, which is, a little bit more visually appealing. So, but I can only imagine one day you'll be back to perfect symmetry too, right? Like
Exactly.
it all goes around
All
in
comes like full
circles.
circle.
So,
Yeah.
and we'll be referring back in the 2020s when you used to do that asymmetry stuff, remember? But again, I can't thank you enough for today. So do you have any parting words for everyone today?
No, other than I'll move my massive arrangement back in here. I just think that one of the joys of being able to do floral arrangement here is the fact that you can go out into the gardens, you can like look around and see what it is that inspires you. So I think like that, taking like that idea and then, continuing the legacy of Constance Spry in that same effect of being adventurous and being able to like go out and forage your own material is something that, I think it's a really fun sort of project, and also just like a really nice way to get back in touch with nature. So I think that's it. I'm glad that you guys were all able to join. I think someone wanted to see the arrangement again, so I'm going to hold on. Put this back up. Let's, a little hard to see, but there. I don't know.
Beautiful, Amy. That's
little
the
bit
money
difficult.
shot. That's it.
But I will I'll take a photograph of it too, and then I can always, if you want to see that, I can send it off to you as well for the finished product. But thank you everyone for joining us. It was a really fun way to spend the afternoon, and I hope you guys are all inspired. And for everyone out there, I hope you have a wonderful Mother's Day this weekend and enjoy this beautiful weather.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you
Bye.
so much. That was really fun.